What up, team? The Sons of Saturday podcast is back. The season is officially over. It's almost February. We have a few things that we want to talk about with the college football playoff. We have a few things we want to talk about with the coaching search. And we really just want to catch up with you guys, too. It looks like Billy Ray is staying warm out there in Summit County. Looks like Breckenridge Bill got the stash, got the Mets hat. What was the temp today? How many runs did you do? What was your vertical out in Breckenridge?
I got around like 12.5. I did like between 6 and 8 different runs today. Two things that I want to mention. Number one, I hate recording in chairs like this. My back is absolutely going to hurt when we're done. But you got to do what you got to do. And number two, I can't complain too much about the cold. Jackson in Pensacola got like 11 inches. I know our friends in Baton Rouge got like 8 inches of snow. So really, really unprecedented times here we are dealing with. But every day that I have been here around noon, it has been -2 and woke up and it was like -11. So it's been cold in Breckenridge, Colorado. I'm here until next Friday, skiing, hit Ollie's for the national championship. I had not been there since our ACC championship in men's basketball, which was a ton of fun. So had a great time.
Special place, Ollie's Breckenridge, Ollie's Frisco. Good times in Summit County. If you're a Hokie and you're skiing, if you're going out hitting that Denver airport, maybe you're flying into Eagle Vale. If you're bougie, hit up Billy Ray. He wants to ski with you. This is Pat. I'm in Charlotte. Just did a little high intensity interval training workout with Juliana.
Pat's taking my girlfriend's classes and I'm not even there, dude.
I was gonna say, Juliana said, "Hey, listen, health club, it opens in a few weeks. They're letting the friends and family in for me to instruct the class." We said, "Hey, let's get the gang out there." Casey was there. We had the whole gang out there. So that was a special time. We did miss Billy Ray, but getting the sweat on at the health club in Charlotte, open in a few weeks.
We got a lot to talk about. And honestly, I know this is a letter from the lunch pail, but I do want to call out a challenge that was issued by Scott Spector. I won't read the whole thing, but a couple of the lines were bold move with really nothing to talk about on the search. Awesome. Shortest podcast of the year. So we are now going to record a 3-hour podcast talking about a spectacle of different events. No, we're not going to do that, but we do have a lot to talk about. And we will kick it off with a Hokie haiku as we normally do. This one's special. Paul Patera. He is a Section 5 club member. For those of you that are not familiar, we'll make sure to share that. And he's been a supporter ever since coming to Virginia Tech games from Colorado, from College Station. He is the man. And I called him randomly. I've never called him on the phone ever. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, we're getting dinner in 15 minutes. And I just got to paint this picture for you." Pat was hangry. It was the hungriest that I've ever seen Pat. He hadn't eaten all day. I had just landed in Denver. And I said, "We need recommendations. Here's where we are. Send us a rec." If I were to pick any nit, the recommendation he sent was 25 minutes away from where we were staying, but absolutely worth it. We went to Sierra Steakhouse and really great rec. Paul, you are the man. Thank you so much. What was the appetizer we got, Pat? It was awesome.
It was some green chili sauce that we dipped it in, kind of like an egg roll thing, out of control. And Coach
great.
Holmes met us.
That's right.
Which was outstanding. And he's like, "Did you get those egg rolls?" And we're like, "Yeah, we got those egg rolls. They were unbelievable." Paul Patera, just an absolute legend. And it was a special night. Good time. Good welcome to Denver.
We'll rip through these here. Paul Patera, CFP is done. If you have narcolepsy, Monday didn't help. So for any of you out there with narcolepsy, T's and P's. Thinking about you. That must have been tough. Central and Mountain Time, though, is the best because TV ends at a reasonable hour, so we can always enjoy that.
Hand up. I did watch the national championship game aboard a Southwest Airlines flight home from Denver to Charlotte. I actually had that same exact flight booked for the Super Bowl Sunday. I did just punt it to Monday. So
Smart.
Going out to Colorado again, we do love skiing in the off season, and going to make sure that the Super Bowl is in front of a television, not in front of an iPad screen, sitting in Southwest Airlines seating. Big rating on the Belly app, by the way, for Sierra Steakhouse. I think it almost was creeping up to a 9.0. Big time spot. The next haiku comes from Bish.
Might be a first time. I don't think I've ever heard this one.
Definitely a first timer. The search continues. Defense coordinator. I think they meant to say defensive, or we might have done a poor copy pasta job. We cannot have peace. Hopefully peace is on the horizon, Bish. Pete McGee, he says, I fear underwhelm. Who wants to be at the helm? Our defensive realm.
Man, this guy is just unbelievable. I want to issue this statement. I don't know what the situation is. I set a deadline of noon today when I would become outwardly worried. I was on Colorado Super Chair, and Ed texted me and said, no defensive coordinator, your timeline has passed. So look, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights during Noah's Ark. And Coach Marv, we're over 40 days since his firing. So again, I'm not in the room. I don't know what's happening. Virginia Tech's been very tight-lipped about it. So I'm not saying that it is a bad situation. But the optics of it going this long certainly leads people to believe that something is awry. I'll just leave it at that. It's a long time. The portal window has come and gone. We've brought defensive players in. Don't know what scheme we're running necessarily. Don't know if this coach is bringing coaches with him as well. That's another factor that you have to look into. So I really hope this is wrapped up. I can't imagine that we get to Monday of next week and this is not wrapped up. If we do, maybe a little bit of a different tone on the show, but I'll just say it one more time. My pick is Chris Partridge. I am biased. Michigan, 2-time recruiter of the year, special teams coordinator, co-DC at Ole Miss. He's the current safeties coach for the Seahawks. I saw Evan put him out there on the Terror Dome message boards on 24/7. So that got me excited. But Pat, do you have any other thoughts? To quote Grayson Wimbish, the quote that I have in my head is it's giving hen house shit right now. Is what it's kind of giving. And again, I'm not in the room. We may hire someone. It'll be a slam dunk, but 42 days is a long time. Performance improvement plans at tech companies are typically 30 days. We are now at 42. I know I use Noah's Ark and performance improvement.
Are you speaking from experience there? What was that?
No, never been on a PIP. Never been on a PIP. But when somebody else was on a PIP, they're like, damn, I got to get 30 SQLs by the end of the month. I'm like, damn, good luck. So, yeah.
Here's me weighing in. You're saying Monday. You're saying, hey, let's not trickle into Monday. The ACC schedule is getting revealed on Monday. Having a schedule and not having a defensive coordinator would be tough. I will say it will be tough. Now, the ACC, speaking of tough, first of all, the fact that these are released this late, it used to be February. This will be January 27th. So, almost trickling into February. We complain about this every single year, justifiably so, I think, where you have the Big Ten and you have the SEC, where it just means more, meaning you get that much more time to schedule your weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, what have you. The SEC waits until the end of January every single year.
And they just stagger it. It's like, hey, we're going to give you week 0. And here's their schedule. Thursday, week 0 and week 1, games revealed on ACC PM on 1/23. Then we do the ACC opener and all 17 teams, like they give you all the opener games in the ACC. That's on the 24th. Then they make you wait until Monday after that Friday to get the whole schedule. Again, tremendous love for Taylor Tannenbaum, Mark Packer, the whole gang over there. But there is some scoop.
Eddie.
There's some Emac, Eddie.
Coach
Everybody.
Rick, Luke Hancock,
EJ Manuel. I mean,
sometimes Corey Alexander.
To quote Goodwill Hunting, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It is some corporate big wig over there wearing a suit, watching anime on Saturday instead of watching college football that is making these decisions. It's awful. It has to stop. It's not what serious conferences do.
So you're saying blame Bob Iger. When in doubt,
sure,
throw Bob Iger under the bus. I guess my question here is, like, are they still putting the puzzle together? Like, we're gonna find out week 0 and week 1 on Thursday, which is tomorrow, by the time you guys are listening to this. And then on Friday, they're gonna tell us the ACC opener. So they're gonna tell us, 2, maybe 3 games of the schedule. Are the other 9 and 10 games just, are they still in the back room, like figuring it out over the weekend? Like, do they have another conference in Bristol or in Charlotte where they're like, all right, well, Miami's going to have a bye. We got to stack it for Miami. So like, let's make sure that they have 2 byes. Let's make sure that if Miami's playing Cal and Stanford, that, it's very far away from each other. I'm on a Miami heater right now.
I was about to say, dude, you are a Miami heater.
No pun or not a pun. No negative bias intended there. But what's going on? Like, why can't we just find out tomorrow? Like, I'm sure the schedule is already intact. Why do we need to wait this long? I'm getting antsy. I want to plan out my 2025, and this is just belaboring it. But hopefully we have a defensive coordinator before we know who our ACC opener is. That said, you said it's been 42 days. That also means it's been 42 days since we terminated.
I thought you were going to say 42 days and 42 nights, sticking with Noah's Ark.
Well, yeah, it has been 42 nights. Strength and conditioning. It took almost 40 days to announce an internal promotion. Can't really say that's a dub. Excited about Coach Ferg. I think Coach Ferg is very much well respected. Former players, current players, players who played with Coach Ferg going all the way back, 20 plus years. My question is more so in the delivery. I mean, this is almost ACC-esque of, hey, why do we wait this long if we knew it was going to be Coach Ferg? Were there other candidates? Not sure. Can't really comment on that. But knowing that I feel like Matt Moore's hiring and announcement was very appropriate, kind of within reasonable timelines as far as strength and conditioning, and our defensive coordinator, I think differently.
A couple things. I was not as concerned with the timing of the strength and conditioning. I always kind of thought it was going to be Coach Ferg. I'm very excited it's Coach Ferg. I think he's going to do a tremendous job. The defensive coordinator thing just is so frustrating given the departures that we have on defense, the transfer portal, guys are back working out. Like, you'd like to have this question answered. So I know we're kind of beating it into the ground at this point, but these need to be answered. And hopefully they are here in short order. I do want to extend 2 shout outs here. I'll start with men's basketball. And I know Ed and Pete and Sam and everybody has been beating the horn on this in the Hokie Hoops pod. By the way, that'll be up. If you're listening to this on Friday, it'll probably be up on Friday as well. Coach Young, he's 8-11. He's won 3 ACC games. He's ranked 10th in the ACC. I just have to take my hat off to him. Like, again, tremendous job, really difficult circumstances, and I enjoy watching them play. I think he has done a masterful job coaching this team and doing the best to maximize the results that we can get. So really, really impressed with men's basketball. They sit at 8-11. And then flipping the page to women's basketball, they won 5 of the last 6. They went to Pittsburgh, beat the Yinzers by 20 points on the road.
No, dude.
Over 20. It's like 25, 27. I couldn't do the quick math.
84-57. That is a blowout, dude. Come on.
It's a blowout. They took them to the woodshed. Awesome game. And man, that's 5 out of 6. Really, really fun to watch. I don't think we even got to talk about this. Shout out to Liz Kitley. She got her number retired. The event was awesome. The pictures, the content, everything. She is just a magnificent person to represent our school. She was signing autographs for hours after tip off, it looked like, or hours after the final buzzer. Man, I got to pull it together. But man, what an awesome representation of Virginia Tech. She loves Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech loves her right back. And she'll be hanging in the rafters forever, and incredibly happy for her and her entire family.
I am so fired up about Liz's retirement. Liz's jersey retirement. The autographs had me super pumped. And then just her ovation. And I think it was really well done. And my folks were there. My aunt and uncle were there. I know Castle was sold out. It looked like it was an awesome atmosphere. The team is moving. Coach Duffy has them going. 3 straight wins on the road. 21 assists in today's contest. Carly Wenzel led all scorers with 16. And you really have to tip your cap to Rose, who has really elevated her game year over year. I mean, she's been a difference maker. She's averaging 12.8 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, and shooting 59% from the field. They are going to the 20th ranked NC State Wolfpack on Sunday. That is must-see television. Virginia Tech and NC State. The battles on the hardwood in women's basketball have been outstanding the last.
And we've owned them
years.
too. Like we've
Completely.
owned them in some pretty awesome games. I mean, one of the most memorable moments of Liz Kitley's career was the inbound pass to win at the end of the game, which had the devastated NC State fan. We put the Titanic music over it. I mean, it was awesome. I do also want to call out that this is from Evan Hughes. Hokies women's basketball tied a program record for fewest turnovers in a game tonight with just 6 turnovers. So 21 assists with 6 turnovers. Again, if you want to play some fun math here, Carly had 10 more assists than the entire team had turnovers. The other times it had been done, 2024 twice, 23, 21, 19, 17, 15, and 02. So, by the way, another Evan Hughes hit, 18 offensive rebounds to just 3 for Pittsburgh. Dominating win tonight. Upset that I got the point differential wrong. That is on me. But Coach Duffy has been cooking it up. Let's go.
Also have seen some improvement year over year from Karis. You had all 5 starters in double figures. Rose had 14 and 15. Really awesome stuff. Will Stewart had some good nuggets from today's win. I want to point out also, unrelated, but related to a previous point. Today is Jarrett Ferguson's birthday. So happy birthday to Coach Ferg, our new director of strength and conditioning. Didn't know this, but he had 5.2 yards per carry in his career at Tech.
Is that good?
19 touchdowns. Shout out to Bluegrass Hokie 504, who's always plugging up the birthday shout outs. You are the man, and so is Coach Ferg. So happy birthday.
I mean, he's been doing that since I committed to Tech. It's unbelievable, his commitment to that. One last thing on scheduling. The South Carolina game is likely to be 3:30 Sunday afternoon. This has not been announced yet, but our guy Tim Thomas was doing some looking at TV schedules and whatnot. That is most likely going to be the time, and I know we will talk about our South Carolina event at the end of this podcast as well. Much better than 11:30 or 11 or whenever we kicked off against Vanderbilt. Basically, if everything after kickoff and the final whistle can just be different than the Vanderbilt game, that'd be great. Be awesome. So, OSU defeated Notre Dame in the national championship 34-23. One thing that I wanted to bring up, Mark Packer put this out the day before the game. We've experienced 26 college football title games during the BCS and college football playoff eras. 17 of those games have been double-digit snoozers. 10 of those games have been determined by 21-plus points. And the last 6 title games have had a winning margin by at least 15 points. Do we get a close game tonight? I will say, and we're going to talk about the college football playoff as a whole, that I enjoyed getting more games, but the clamoring for letting additional teams in, you are going to see results like this continue. As far as the game is concerned, Marcus Freeman, gonna be a star. Like, I don't know how you can't absolutely love Marcus Freeman. I don't know how you can't absolutely love both of these teams. As a Christian and believer, it was like a big like commercial for Christianity and God. Personally, loved that a lot. Loved to see that at Ohio State and Notre Dame. But ultimately, to me, when you extend the season this long and you let teams in outside of what would typically be the top 2 or top 4, I think it is very clear that you are going to get the best team to win the national championship, because the best team in college football may not be the best team in September and October. And that's what Ohio State was. They had the best roster. They were very well coached, got the job done. A lot of Will Howard slander out there. He finished number 1 in QBR in college football. I'll just repeat that one more time. Will Howard finished number 1 in QBR in college football. And I mean, Ryan Day, a story of Josh Pate says this all the time. When you say a coach can't do something, they can't do it until they do it. And Ryan Day went ahead and did it. Can't win the big game, can't win a natty. He went ahead and did it. Completely changes the course of his career. I'd say one of the best redemption stories that we've had in a long time. So game was a little closer on the scoreboard than it was for most of the game. Notre Dame, puzzling decision to kick the field goal in the fourth quarter. A special teams, I think they faked the punt and it was dropped. But I think both of those teams are tremendous. And I think we absolutely got the two right teams playing each other for the national championship.
Hindsight is 2020 on the field goal. I can't speak on behalf of the fake punt.
Mm-hmm.
Actually had a laggy internet connection during that point in the game, so I actually did not see the fake punt. But with the fake field goal, or with going for the field goal, it's a 4th and 9. Statistically, a 4th and goal from the 9-yard line. I think it's a less than 5% chance that you're going to convert 4th and 9. So it's kind of 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. Like, you can either take the 3 points or you can take the less than 5% opportunity to score a touchdown on a 4th and goal from the 9. I did see some Notre Dame fans say, I am so glad about the field goal, because if that's what keeps Marcus Freeman off of the NFL's radar, give me Marcus Freeman for 20 more years at Notre Dame. I'm seeing that everywhere too. Everyone at Notre Dame knows that Marcus Freeman is building a powerhouse football program there. The culture of that team is unbelievable. Notre Dame has completely done a 180 from the villain of college football that Brian Kelly was leading for, the better part of a decade. Brian Kelly had a handful of, media stuff, controversies here and there, was never a super likable guy, and, is kind of still wearing that at LSU and hasn't been able to win the big game at LSU. You have Marcus Freeman, who is, cut from the cloth of what every Notre Dame fan loves and is building an incredible program there. So hats off to both of them for making the game. It was I called it a generational run from Ohio State. The fact that they could go ahead and just run train on Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and then, the Notre Dame and the Texas games are both close games. But another thing I wanted to point out about the playoff, and you said this
real quick before you move off the game. I didn't think the field goal was a huge deal. Notre Dame was in a position to make a stop on 3rd down in a 1-possession ball game and go score. So again, hindsight's 2020. If you're like knocking Marcus Freeman down because he made that one decision in a game where ultimately, like, let's be realistic. Ohio State had a far superior roster. This was already going to be a difficult game for Notre Dame to win. And the fact that they honestly kept it as close as they did and got in a position to win the game in the fourth quarter impressed me. So I just wanted to add that.
I think the seeding of the college football playoff, I think it's, pretty unanimous that needs to change going into 2025, 26. the fact that you had those first 4 games that were so lopsided, it's similar to the NFL playoffs. The NFL playoffs have blowouts all over the bracket during the wild card round and even sometimes in the divisional round. So that's kind of just what playoffs are sometimes. The first round of the playoff, the better teams are going to win by a lot of points. Would you rather not have the game? I'm excited that I got to watch Ohio State and Notre Dame and Penn State, play home games, Texas play home games, against albeit inferior opponents, but we still got to see them host a playoff game. And teams went in there and had an opportunity to win, and the better teams won those football games.
This is a good transition to the next point, and this is just kind of a couple of college football observations. And I'm not saying I want less games. I'm fine with the 12-team playoff. I'm on record as saying I would like 8. I'm also on record saying that I'd go back to the BCS. But a couple
Make
of
up your
things,
mind.
like a couple of things. Well, we're here, so we have to embrace it. A couple of things. Number one, and I heard this from Casey, who's an Ohio State fan. I've heard this from casuals. I've heard this from diehards. It just felt like the football season was too long. Like dragging all the way to mid-January. You have the week 0. And a lot of people were saying, hey, the college football playoff doesn't seem as big, or the college football final doesn't seem as big as all the other games. I think there are a couple of factors that contribute to that. Number one, there are so many playoff games now that you're trying to hype every single one up every 10-ish days, and it kind of gets lost in the wash. And number two, I actually think this is a great point that Josh Pate brought up again. The fact that ESPN owns the college football playoff, you're not hearing about the college football playoff on Fox. You're not hearing about it on CBS. You're not hearing about it basically anywhere else on these major networks because they don't own any of the games. So not only do you lose the advertising power of working with an NBC or any of these other groups, you're also losing the ability to hear other people call the games. You're not hearing Gus Johnson. You're not hearing Joel Klatt. You're not hearing Brad Nussmeier or whatever that guy's name is. Gary Danielson. Like, I think that those two factors are really contributing to the overall product not having as much oomph as we may be used to. Do you feel that way? I woke up on National Championship Day. I was like, I guess this is today. I'm going to watch it. But if you're a casual, is it on your radar as much?
Even with the home games, I thought some of the broadcasts were suboptimal. They didn't have that big game feel. Texas, not Texas. Ohio State, Tennessee had the big game feel. It was at night. Yes. It was Saturday night. It was kind of the culmination. It was probably the second best game out of the 4. Oh, the games were tough, but there was no juice in the Penn State SMU game in the broadcast. Yeah. I was pretty disappointed.
It was on TNT, by the way. ESPN owns it, but they basically had or ESPN produced it and they had TNT do it. Completely agree with you. I don't know how you fix it, but if we're going to continue to grow the game, I think looking at different broadcast partners to be involved is important. And that is what it is. I do also want to point out that when the playoffs came out, I did put in a $25 bet to win $525 that it would be Notre Dame and Ohio State. I did cash that. Correctly predicted the college football final and the Heisman finalist. And Pat, you've given me credit on this. Was pretty good with score predictions for Virginia Tech. I think I nailed 1 and was a point or 2 off for 2. So not to take victory laps here, but I will take a small one. So this next segment is lies that were told in 2024. Number 1 lie. Preseason, On3's putting their graphics out. On3's talking about how much money everybody has. And everyone's like, oh, God. I guess this team's just going to buy a national championship. They just have more money than everybody. They're just going to buy a national championship. I will point you to Ole Miss. I will point you to Florida State. I will point you to Miami. The big, I think, falsehood of this college football season, I'm pulling up this tweet. I went back and I looked at the transfer portal numbers for all of these different teams. Ohio State and Notre Dame combined to bring in 16 transfer portal kids. Here are some other teams in the numbers they brought in. Texas A&M 28, Ole Miss 26, Florida State 17, USC 18, Oklahoma 16. What I take from that is the transfer portal needs to be a supplemental tool versus a reinventional tool. If you look at Ohio State, everybody was floating around. They have so much money. They have this much money. And Kirk had a rough year. We're going to talk about it later. But Kirk was out there and basically saying, look, most of the money they spent was retaining players. And in reality, there were 2.5 starters that Ohio State took that started for Ohio State. That's Will Howard. That's Josh Downs. Josh Downs, by the way, is one of the best players in college football. And Seth McLaughlin, who took over for Caleb Downs, sorry. Seth McLaughlin, who took over for starting center when their All-American center went down. They were decimated on the offensive line. And then you had Judkins, but he didn't start over Travion Henderson. So my point of this is just going out and getting guys does not guarantee you that you're going to be good. The most important thing is, are they able to gel? Do they fit your system? And do they absorb the culture that the guys that have been in your program for a long time are exuding to the rest of you? So I just wanted to point that out. I think a lot of people were kind of on that train of they just bought a national championship. And a lot of the teams that had a lot of money weren't really going out and getting a lot of new guys, or they were spending on a bunch of guys and it didn't work out. So that's my number one lie.
Can you call it a number one lie when it's clear that Ohio State still spent the largest amount in college football and did win the national championship?
So there's no definitive data that they spent the most in college football. If you look at most of the lists that say how much money they had, they were in the top 3. My point, the like case of the lie here is that if you win the transfer portal, or you need to go get guys, or that is a way that you can succeed, I think is vastly overblown. If you want to be successful, you have to have good culture, and you have to have depth, and you have to have guys in your room that have been there for years that make it happen. And I think that's a little bit, I know that Dabo has been more involved in the transfer portal this year specifically, but I have to give him credit too, because everybody was railroading him for not using the transfer portal, and he got his team all the way to the college football playoff. Now he's going to start supplementing, and I think that will make Clemson better. But ultimately, I'm just dubious of bringing in a ton of guys and being like, we just reloaded. That's not reloading. That is reinventing yourself, which is a dangerous, dangerous game to play. And I think that number is crazy. The two teams that combined in guys that they brought in are less than Ole Miss, are less than Oklahoma, are less than A&M. And sure, A&M just got a new coach. They're doing different stuff. Florida State's coming off of a national championship, should have been run, and they're bringing in a ton of guys, and it just blows up in their face. So it's a dangerous game to play.
It's hard having the Ohio State data point in your pool here. I think the Ohio State data point might be the turd in the pool, considering I think your take is buying a team wins you a national championship is a lie. I think you should adjust it to buying you a team from the transfer portal wins you a national championship. If you're spending $20 million and you win a national championship, I don't care if you're hitting the portal or retaining your guys, you are still spending money. If Virginia Tech had $20 million to spend, I would rather have $20 million than not have $20 million to spend, whether it's in the portal or retaining guys who are super talented. So, Sonny Dykes, TCU made the national championship, 3-4 years ago. Granted, they got blown out. We all saw it. It was the most lopsided national championship ever. Sonny Dykes had a top 5 portal class as far as from a volume perspective. TCU had so many guys from the portal that year, and they made the national championship. So, they beat Michigan in the semifinals. So I think for this situation, I agree. Buying a team from the portal, winning you.
I will add that
is a lie.
Buying a team from the portal.
There we go.
Boom.
All
Take
right.
Updated. Number 2, Number 2, most kids are playing for checks. There is no passion. I think that is a argument for teams that have bad culture. Losing teams, fine. They're playing for a check. I'm not sure that you can look at guys. I just think if you have good culture before was already a differentiator. In the age of NIL, it is a massive differentiator. Like, you could not listen to anybody talking about college football. Kirk, Howard, Pate, everybody. They raved about the culture in the locker room for Notre Dame. They raved about the culture in the locker room for Ohio State. I think that more than ever, this is so important right now. And I think the way that translates into Virginia Tech is for Coach Ferg to step into this role. Like, sure. Do I want the guys to squat heavier? Yeah. Do I want them to run more gassers and be in better shape? Sure. His number one role, and what I'm so excited for him to do, is bring that culture that you develop in the locker room, on the field, in the indoor, on the jugs machines, onto the football field, because that is where you win. Talent's going to get you so far. NIL dollars are going to get you so far, but the basement, like the foundation of your house, has to be team culture. It's more important now than it's ever been. And, I don't like a lot of the stories that come out where you hear this kid's sitting out, this kid's transferring, but most of those teams are teams that are not competing for titles or teams that are not doing anything special.
Yeah, I give you Notre Dame and I give you Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
The culture is right at Notre Dame. The culture has to be upside downs and backwards at Florida State for them to have that much talent and be so bad.
Yeah. Last one I have, this one's just a little victory lap for me. Colorado's going to crash and burn. Colorado, really solid year, probably the best year they've had in close to 20 years. Really solid. A lot of different ways to skin a cat. Interested to see, a lot of people aren't talking about this. There are 2 things that can turn the college football world into a 5-alarm fire. If somehow Bill Belichick leaves North Carolina, or Deion Sanders takes this Cowboys job, or both happen, the coaching carousel that could follow that would be unbelievable. I don't want to play out scenarios that don't exist, but you're looking at, does Dan Mullen consider going to UNC if Bill Belichick goes out of there? What coordinators, what guys in the NFL, what guys that are, assistants are bolting to Carolina or Boulder? Just something to keep your eye on. I think that could be a disaster. It would also be hilarious if Bill Belichick were to exit stage left from Carolina.
Everybody wants Dan Mullen. The question is, is he comfortable up in the booth? Does he like it up there? Does he like checking out all the college towns and playing beer pong with Matt Berry?
Yeah.
Sounds like a fun gig. Sounds like stress-free. Doesn't have to recruit anyone. Will Dan Mullen ever go back into it? We'll see. I know everyone. Are you aware
that Dan Mullen is the current head coach of UNLV?
Did he get hired?
Yes.
When was that?
Like a month and a half ago.
What?
Breaking news. This is a top 5 moment on this show, dude.
Dude, congratulations to Dan Mullen, who was hired by the UNLV Runnin' Rebs.
The Runnin' Rebs, dude.
A few weeks ago. December 12th. Holy crap.
After that UNLV.
I was driving to New Jersey from Charlotte. I must have missed the ESPN notif.
UNLV staff took the job over at Purdue. Should we do winners of the year? Or do you have a lie? Do you have any lies that you're thinking of right now?
I don't have any lies for you other than me believing that Dan Mullen was still in the booth with Matt Berry. What is Matt Berry going to do without his Robin? Batman Berry.
Winners of the year. The Big Ten. Second year in a row, Big Ten wins the national championship. You kind of have a quasi Big Ten national championship. Let's do this now. Everybody trying to make the case that Notre Dame should just join a conference sounds preposterous. If you say that, you're like, either admit that you think it would be better for college football that they join the college football or they join a conference, or admit you hate Notre Dame. And both of those are perfectly fine rationales for it. But Notre Dame, like it or not, is the New York Yankees of college football. They make more money not being in a conference. Contrary to public belief, they do play difficult schedules. You can say, well, Notre Dame's an independent, so they don't play anybody. Go ahead and look up their strength of schedule. It's very good every single year. It's typically in the top 30. And I'm just so tired of this dog and pony show. Number one, the ACC, why would they join the ACC? Zero reason to join the ACC other than to bail the ACC out. Big Ten, if they're going to join a conference, I think that's the one that makes the most sense. If the Big Ten is dragging their feet and they're saying, hey, you got to give up your television money, they'll just go to the SEC. But for right now, there's no reason for Notre Dame to join a conference at all. Zero.
Completely agree. I don't know why they would. As long as NBC is going to continue stroking the checks, they don't really care much. I mean, they have a long history of some of the Olympic sports and non-revenues. Women's basketball, they won a national championship within the last 5-10 years in women's basketball. Soccer, they won a natty in 2013. Like they cover the board. I don't know why Notre Dame basketball is taking so long to get back to those Luke Heron, Goody, Troy Murphy days. But
yeah,
they have zero reason to. And just ask yourself, hey, if I had the best TV deal in collegiate athletics, why would I move from that?
The answer is you would
still
not.
a possibility. And you saw this year, again, the college football playoff is continuously fluid and might change again. But they got that home game. They won 4 games, or they won 3 games and made it to the national championship. Like, they're in the perfect position. Why would they do anything?
Mm-hmm. Other winners, obviously SMU, obviously Boise State. Shout out to both of them. I think for the longest time, there's been clamoring for teams like Boise and SMU. This is not meant to be disrespectful. There's been a lot of clamoring for them to compete for national titles. You saw what that looked like when they played against Penn State. I will say Boise put up a nice fight against Penn State. SMU railroaded, but shout out to both of them for great years.
It's
Arizona State.
I would even say winner of the year is non-Power 2 college football players, considering the Heisman Trophy race was between Genty and Travis Hunter all year long. No one considered anyone from the Big Ten, anyone from the SEC. It was a guy from Boise State and a guy from Colorado. And it was probably one of the better Heisman races that we've had recently. I mean, especially considering that there wasn't a quarterback in the mix is pretty crazy, considering it's really been a quarterback's award the last couple decades now. So
they certainly tried.
Hats off to both of them.
They certainly tried during the year. I mean, before the season even started, it was like, dude, Jackson, basically, if you're an SEC quarterback, you're in the top 10 for Heisman finalist. We'll throw Will Howard in there. Like, everybody was just, hey, basically every Heisman finalist is these guys.
I mean, we all thought, at like the halfway point of the season, Dylan Gabriel was very high on Heisman watch.
Yeah. Indiana and Arizona State. I'll start with Arizona State. They were picked to finish basically last in the Big 12. I think they were picked to finish last. Unbelievable job by them. Cam Scatterbu, one of my favorite players ever, cemented as one of my favorite players ever. And I'm going to give props to Indiana. The difficult thing about giving props to Indiana is the coach already gave himself all of the props. So I was going to say Kurt Cignetti take a bow, but he's taken about 50 bows since the regular season ended.
Smoking with you got him, dude. Google me, I win. Shout out to Nick Saban for humbling him a little bit on the set. And shout out to John Earl for predicting Indiana to make a bowl, win a bowl. They did a lot more than that. That was pretty remarkable seeing them make the playoff. Losers. That
This
Post
one
Malone
hurts.
song. I know you like that Post Malone song.
This one hurts because I love this guy. I really do. I think he is an institution. I think he's a big part of college football culture in the 21st century. I think he'd be a great guy to sit down and have a beer with. Kirk Herbstreit was insufferable this year. Whether it was the SEC coattail riding, unbelievable in the beginning of the year. Crying when Ohio State won the national championship. That was a tough look. Just, I think if you were to say this guy lost the college football season, I think Kirk Herbstreit lost a lot of fans this year. And he has I wasn't aware of this until Casey kind of put me onto it, was he has a very weird relationship with Ohio State. His son went to Michigan. He was living in Columbus, did a really good job of being non-biased in the beginning of his career and almost went like super unbiased, like biased against Ohio State. I love Kirk. I will continue to love Kirk. I have a hard time looking at it objectively and not saying that it was a rough year for Kirk.
R.I.P. Ben.
Sure.
Honorable mention for biggest loser here. Actually, let's
I'll say it because you didn't say it. The dog stuff's too much. Too much. It's too much. I'm sorry the dog passed away. I enjoyed Ben for about 2 weeks. It's too much. We got to tone it down. We got to tone it down.
I mean, I think the craziest part was that we lost Ben, and then like literally within like 4 days, there was a new dog on set.
Yeah, it was wild.
And it was like, wait, is that Ben? No, I think its name was like Pete or Robert or Steve or George or another human name.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tough. My
Really tough.
nomination here is the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Oh my God.
Just had a tough year. Was knocking on the door, trying to get 3 teams in the playoff. Florida State predicted to win the ACC by the ACC media, and they completely flailed, and they were the biggest and number one laughingstock of college football after an undefeated regular season in 2023. Really challenging. We've talked all about Florida State already on this podcast. Hokies do visit Tallahassee, which did get some snow in 2025. So might have to dial that one back up, Billy Ray. Head back to that club or wherever.
I don't think there's a might about it. That is going to be a trip that is taken.
Big Russ's return to Tallytown.
Yeah, he just needs to not headbutt the sidewalk like he did last week. But other than that, it'll be okay.
Miami did fizzle out a little bit. They went out there. They beat Florida week 1. They had a monumental victory over the Hokies at home on a Friday night in September. But they did fizzle out after those early results.
All
that hype.
Feel free to just completely crush me for this take. Because I don't even know if I believe it yet. I think given the history of Miami and the fact that this happens every single year, I'm not going to call this season a success because they didn't make the college football playoff. But I did not anticipate them getting as far as they did without falling off of the track. To basically make it all the way to the last week of the season and then lose to Kyle McCord at Syracuse. I'm not going to say job well done, but I'm going to say in the last 20 years of the Miami experience, this had to be one of the more enjoyable ones. I expected this to go poorer than it did. They did not make the college football playoff. They did not make the ACC championship, but they won a pretty damn good amount of games. And the amount of times where they tried to lose, whether it be against Virginia Tech, whether it be against Cal, I'm forgetting what the third game is, but they would just play Louisville. They would just play these games where Miami loses that game every single year. And it just nipped them in the butt the last week of the season. So how do you feel about that? It
was even the Duke game too. The Duke game was tied up or it was neck and neck at halftime and early in the third quarter, and then they pulled away. They won 53-31. Miami was really fun to watch this year because they scored so many points. They scored
and
so
so
many
did the other
points.
team.
Cam Ward and his whatever the Selly is. It's tough because Miami really didn't beat anyone. If you look at their schedule, they beat Florida in week 1 before Florida kind of had identified who they were.
Mm-hmm.
But that was nice, them going into Gainesville and winning. I mean, they blew them out. And then other wins here. Florida A&M, Ball State, South Florida, this Virginia Tech, Cal, and Louisville streak of 1 possession wins, skin of their teeth. Florida State, Duke, lost to Georgia Tech, which completely derailed them. Wake Forest, they beat, and then they lose. I mean, yeah, this was your playoff opportunity, and they completely blow it up at the Carrier Dome, the JMA Wireless Dome. This is a victory lap that I'll take. I predicted this a long time ago, probably in September, that Miami would either run the table or have 1 loss and lose at Syracuse to conclude the season. And then they go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, the highly anticipated Pop-Tarts Bowl. Cam Ward stays in long enough to break the touchdown record, break Case Keenum's record, and then takes a seat, and they lose by 1 point, which was a huge bummer if you had Miami to cover. But which also a huge bummer if you love college football. Because, Billy Ray, to zag your point earlier, these guys don't care. These guys don't have passion. These guys, are just collecting a check. Cam Ward is an example of that, another turd in your swimming pool. But he was fun to watch this year. And, Miami, I guess, like, if they played an SEC or Big Ten schedule, this is probably a different conversation too.
Maybe
they didn't win a single ranked. They didn't beat a single ranked team.
What else do you have on losers?
Let's see. ACC, Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech. You can make the argument that Virginia Tech had the second most disappointing season out of any school in the Power 5. I know Wisconsin's up there. I know, Purdue's up there, Arizona, but Virginia Tech and Florida State really were black eyes on the ACC this year. Going out and, whether it's McAfee or, McAfee and Barry and a couple other guys predicting us, Josh Pate, totally given all of his energy into Virginia Tech all offseason, and then going out and going 6-6, losing the bowl game, losing all the close games, really losing the fan base, or the casual fans at least, losing week 1. Just disappointing. Tough look for the Atlantic Coast Conference after just all offseason. The rat poison. Professor Snape was in the lab in potions class, just pulling out CBS Sports rat poison from here, ESPN rat poison here, Ultimate Concoction, and Virginia Tech and Hokie Nation fell victim to the rat poison. You had UNC. They were not good this year. North Carolina Tar Heels, they finished 6-6. They fired Mac Brown. Mac Brown retired/fired, and then they lost to UConn in a bowl. It's just like University of North Carolina football continues to be University of North Carolina football.
I get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but I'll say it again. I just wish, Virginia Tech included, I wish some of these brands would just not embarrass themselves all the time. Like
NC State, dude, come on.
Like the ACC, the argument with the ACC is we have a bunch of teams that suck and don't have football culture. But if you go back in history and you look at teams like, I'm not saying these are Alabamas or Oklahomas, but you look at Florida State, you look at Clemson, you look at Miami, you look at Virginia Tech, you look at UNC, you look at some of these schools and you're like, man, you guys for the last decade have either been taking turns or at the same time being a disaster, like losing to group of 5 schools, getting blown out by Wake Forest. I just wish that the teams that we played with would do better when they don't play us. Like UNC going out and losing to UConn is unbelievably embarrassing. And it happens every year with some of these brands that should be better. And
like
it's
Pittsburgh?
lowered the overall. Pittsburgh too.
Pittsburgh was hot, dude. They were so hot. And then they finished 7-6. They were 3-5 in conference.
I think
They
they started.
rolled
I think they
through
started six. I think they
non-con.
started 6-0 and then finished 0-7.
Their quarterback was like the second coming of Dan Marino, and
Mhm.
finished 7-6. NC State, who is hyped up just as much as Virginia Tech in the offseason. Probably a little bit less because I think Virginia Tech does have a little bit more cachet and a little bit more history than NC State football. But Dave Doran and NC State went 6-7. You know, Boston
Louisville.
College had a hot start, and then they finished 7-6. Like, you do have to give a big hat tip. I know we alluded to this a little bit. SMU coming in year one, doing what they did. You can buy an ACC championship, or you can buy an ACC championship appearance. SMU, they bought their way into the conference.
Yeah,
I'm sure they have quite an NIL, a bolstered roster in NIL. And then, I mean, Syracuse and Louisville, like Louisville went 9-4. You know, you got to tip your cap to them. I feel like they're always kind of on the cusp of doing something great. But Syracuse and Fran Brown in year one, for them to beat Miami like that, for them to go on the road and beat UNLV early in the season, you know, some of their losses were head scratchers. And if they played those games again, you probably think Syracuse is winning those football games. I mean, they lost to Stanford at home.
One of the things that I think is being glossed over is the fact that I think the ACC is very lucky that Kyle McCord is taking his talents to the NFL. I was going to place a future on Syracuse to win the ACC if Kyle McCord came back. Fran Brown did a great job with that team. Interested to see how the rest of his career goes. How long he stays at Syracuse, if he stays at Syracuse forever, like he says he is, like every coach says they are when they get to a job. But yeah, interested to see how that rolls out. Lastly,
the Kyle McCord game, the tough moment was when we went to the bar with Casey on a Thursday night to watch Kyle McCord play Pittsburgh, and he threw like 9 interceptions in the first half.
We had every Kyle McCord over yards, 3 touchdowns, like one or less interceptions, and Kyle McCord just left his brain in Syracuse. Last one for me, SEC. I'm an SEC guy. I think that it has been the best conference for the last 10, 15 years. I don't even think that's even remotely arguable. They got over their skis. They did so much chest puffing and so much, like, complaining is the wrong word, but almost like building themselves up, and then to go and have the results that they had in the bowls and in rivalry weekend and in the college football playoff, their status took a little bit of a hit. And I have a hard time not thinking that the SEC is one of the losers of the year. I mean, Lane Kiffin, I love Lane. I think Lane is hilarious. Probably wouldn't let him around my daughters very often, but he ran his mouth a whole lot and beat Duke. And when he beat Duke, you would have thought that he beat like the 85 Bears. So tough year for the SEC.
The only team that can compare to the 85 Bears is the 86 Virginia Tech Hokies with their Peach Bowl shuffle. My last losing take of the football season is for myself, hand up, for not knowing ball on a few occasions lately. One was a missed tweet, tweeting that the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, which I have been to. I have been to the football game in 2018, Georgia beat Florida. I put out a tweet from the Sons of Saturday account complaining that we were moving. That game was being moved to Mercedes-Benz. And I said, why are we bringing this historic game to a neutral site?
Dude,
now,
Tim
the
Thomas
intent behind the tweet was saying, hey, why are we moving this game to Mercedes-Benz? Because I have never been to Mercedes-Benz. I went to the Georgia Dome 3 times. there's a lot of football being played in that stadium in Mercedes-Benz.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm excited to play South Carolina. I think we might have like a matchup with Bama at some point over the next, decade and a half or whatever. If it happens at Mercedes-Benz, you might have to fact check me on that. Now, I might not know ball again, but I did have people all over me about that. And yes, guys, I know that world's largest outdoor cocktail party game is played at TIAA Bank Cref Stadium in Jacksonville, whatever it's called now. I've done the whole Jack's Beach thing. We went to Lynch's Irish Pub. It was awesome. So the second part of not knowing ball, that's really tough. The whole Dan Mullen thing. Like I am going to have to wear that. Like I might have to buy season tickets to UNLV football next year and, go out to a game and get hazed or something. Maybe like I did win my fantasy league. So maybe I do know ball, but maybe my I don't know. There needs to be some form of punishment on not knowing the Dan Mullen thing. Because I'm a Dan Mullen guy. I really
incredible. You turned the not knowing ball into boasting about your fantasy football team win, which I will give you credit. Tough to do. Lost in the semifinals. Had a first round bye.
Josh Allen, draft him as your quarterback. You'll have a good year.
Should we go to letters from the lunch pail now?
Letters from the lunch pail.
Scott
Spector, man.
Scott, we've been going for an hour and 1 minute. Here's the letter from the lunch pail. Bold move. He's talking about us recording a podcast. Bold move with really nothing to talk about on the search. 42 days and counting. Playoff sucked ass. Quote. We've known that since it was announced and proved to be suck ass. And the direction of college football is driving many fans away. Awesome. Shortest podcast of the year. Sucked
Scott,
ass.
That's awesome.
So Scott, I think some of these college football playoff games obviously have been blowouts. Drilling down on your word sucked ass, or 2 words. I don't know, man. Like Arizona State, Texas, pretty awesome game. Ohio State, Texas, pretty awesome game. Georgia, Notre Dame, pretty awesome game. Notre Dame, Penn State, best game of the entire thing, probably. So, again, I miss the BCS. I think that 12 is far too many. Aside from that, if you only have 4 teams or 2 teams, Ohio State's not making the college football playoff. Notre Dame is not making the college football playoff. And that pretty clearly to me shows you that you're not going to have the best team win a title, and the best team won the title this year. So number 1, hour into this podcast, we did find some things to talk about. I am extremely worried about the defense coordinator situation as of noon today, and I hope it gets figured out. But I do think that the direction of the sport is pushing people away with the NIL and transfer portal stuff. We could do an entire podcast on that. I hope the new legislation in April makes a difference. We'll probably bring Olivia back on to talk about that, about what the ramifications are of that. I know there are I think there are a couple of groups that are suing for antitrust laws. I'm going to shut up because I'm not smart on this stuff at all. So that's why we have Olivia. So my only qualm here really is there's always something to talk about. And I don't know if the playoff sucked ass. Then Lauren Benson. My guess on the DC delay is the DC is Daryl Tapp. And since he has no DC experience, that's why they're bringing Bud back at some capacity, maybe. I have no idea. I would say this. A couple of names that I haven't heard thrown around a lot. Nick Sorensen. Daryl Tapp is certainly one of those names. No, we have been flight tracking from Ohio State. There's the Penn State connection. At this point, I just want to get somebody in the room. Don't know who it's going to be, but I wish I had something for you on the DC stuff. I don't.
Let's get Nick Sorensen and Tapp. Package deal. Nick Sorensen, Tapp, and Bud. I know that Jay Bateman has been thrown around over the last couple of days. Defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. He's from Richmond or from the 804 region, played ball at Randolph-Macon. Parents are still in the area. Like, he was a 2-time Broyles Award nominee, was defensive coordinator at Carolina for a little bit. That's a name that's been thrown around. Anthony Poindexter, we don't really know what's going on because of the dominoes that, Dabo, Yankin, Tom Allen from Penn State, and what that means for Anthony Poindexter's implications at Penn State. He is the Penn State co-DC, could potentially be promoted to their lead DC. The two guys at Ohio State, I think it's Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton, who are both on the defensive staff. One coach is a co-DC or assistant coach. The other is a safeties coach. But if they're playing their cards right, they're probably getting huge raises from Ohio State, who just won a championship. And we know about some of that TV contract money, gets put right in the pockets of the victor. So Ohio State, we'll have to look up what their payouts are. Every single time a team won a game in the playoff, they won a ton of money to go with their victory as well. And then were there any others? I know Billy Ray was talking about Chris Partridge, but maybe a pipe dream. I want to meet that guy at some point, Billy Ray. So
we'll make it happen.
We'll have to file that one. The portal. Hokies have the 11th ranked portal class right now, which is pretty good. I think nationally via On3. So this is On3's rankings. I think a lot of people are excited about Ben Bell, defensive end transfer, who so the two guys who we have on the end are both gingers, and Hokie Dan, our guy, we were trying to create some nicknames. I heard on the Monday night college football national championship live stream, the watch party Pete and Sam were hosting. And I think it was either Pete. I think it was Dan. Dan was like, let's just call them the Gingerbread Man or the Red Dead Redemption. I thought Gingerbread Man was really funny. So maybe we'll put the marketing team to use and or put them to work and see what they can come up with. But ultimately, like this portal opening here, I know that the portal period in April, as Billy Ray had alluded to on last week's pod, is really the most important one. Knowing that getting through spring ball, retaining everyone for 2025 is utmost priority. Whether it's Pop and Kyron Drones, or if it's some of our defensive backs who are newcomers to the team right now. But just with this era and with all the varieties and variables, we'll see what this roster looks like in about 90 days. Should we close it out with some party planning? What do you think?
Yeah.
All right. So the spring game is April 13th. We will be there. The spring jam. Mark your calendars. April 12th. Save the date. April 12th, the spring jam. Last year, I guess this will be our fourth one. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Talk about a long tenure jamming up in spring. Over at First in Maine. Check us out the night before spring game. We will sell tickets, probably sell tickets online, probably like 30 days in advance, maybe a couple weeks out. But if you guys are interested in learning more about the spring jam, hit us up. Really excited about the spring jam. Just a party to bring everyone together. Kind of doing it in conjunction with the For Those to Come golf tournament the Monogram Club puts on. I know they do a great job every year putting on that golf tournament. So we like to have the hey, where are we going tonight party when downtown slammed. You can always hit up the spring jam like that. And then Atlanta, if you have filled out
whoa,
it's past my bedtime. If you have filled out the form, I would anticipate over the next 5 or 6 days an email going out. We have hotels blocked already, so don't book your hotel yet. We got them at pretty good rates. We're knocking out a handful. If you're a Hyatt guy, if you're a Hilton guy, if you're a Marriott guy, like we'll have an option for all three of you, and you'll be able to use your points too. unlike last year.
It's a big change.
Yeah, it is a big change. People like getting their benefits. You're staying 2-3 nights. You could earn some serious pointage. So we are going to do a party in Atlanta on Saturday. Stay tuned. Probably going to do some collabs for a tailgate on Sunday with Virginia Tech. And it's going to be great. So don't book your Airbnb, don't book your hotel, and don't make your plans yet. Tickets to the game, we'll see. I know since it's a third-party neutral game, it's going to be a little bit different on ticket acquisition. So see what we can do if we could get any bulk tickets for you guys. But as always, follow us on socials. Check out our newsletter where we do a lot of communications. We did put out a Google form on Instagram. It's in our Instagram bio, and it's on our Twitter account of all information pertaining to the Atlanta weekend. If you're in the Section 5 club, we are doing something special for all our Section 5 club members that weekend. So if you're in the club, congratulations. You're going to have a cool event and a cool opportunity. If you're not in the club, but you want to have extra cool exclusive plans that weekend, go ahead to our website and check out our Patreon for the Section 5 club. And we'd love to have you in there for some exclusive opportunities, events, merchandise giveaways, and a special Section 5 club newsletter.
Great pod.
You can talk about anything, Scott Spector. Yeah, that's like an hour and 15 minutes, dude. We just crushed that.
I don't think there was any fluff. If you think there was some fluff in this one, let us know. Had a ton of fun ripping it in Breckenridge tomorrow, and we'll be in touch. Did you see my Norway Sons of Norway tweet today?
I did, dude. Yeah.
Fun find. As always, be safe. If you're in the South, dig yourself out. It's going to be okay. The snow will melt. The sun will rise again tomorrow. In all seriousness, be safe. I know it's been pretty dangerous below the Mason-Dixon line. And stay warm.
We got the AFC and the NFC this weekend. Billy Ray, who are your AFC and NFC champs? What are we looking at for Super Bowl?
So I have a bet in for Bills commies. It's who I'll be rooting for. That's what I'd like to see. Bills commies. Hope they both win. Be fun. Playoffs been great this year.
I'd be pretty pumped to see the Washington Commanders win a Super Bowl, but I really want to see Josh Allen win a Super Bowl as well.
I know. It's a tough pick. You got a lot of likable people there.
I think right now, really, it's anybody but the Birds too.
I feel like more people are tired of the Chiefs.
Yeah. I think maybe even just from a fan base thing. And I mean, I want all four of these quarterbacks to win personally. I think it'd be really cool to see a rookie quarterback win a Super Bowl. You like a dynasty because it's greatness, and Mahomes is greatness. I hated his flop last week. I thought that was awful. I love Jalen Hurts.
Can't blame him.
And
Can't blame him. Hate the game. Don't hate the player.
I love Jalen Hurts and I love Josh Allen. So, going to be some good games. Excited.
It is 8:09 Mountain Time. I just checked Hokies FB's page to see if we have an announcement for defensive coordinator. So we have made it through this podcast with no announcement. If that changes by the time that this is posted,
no defensive coordinator, but we do know our week 0 opponent. Thanks to the ACC.
Hokies, be good. Go Tech. Go men's. Go women's. Go wrestling. Keep it rolling.